connecting with us from. And then you can write in the chat box where you're connecting with us from and what exactly you're looking forward to in today's session. Great, thanks everyone. I think we are ready to start. So welcome to today's session. This is the Corporals Organization Mentorship Sessions. We've been hosting episode 2 of the sessions, actually. We've been hosting these sessions every Friday for the past couple of weeks now. And just last week, we started a new series called, basically support of youth-led organizations, which is from last week's series where we're talking about how to start a youth-led organization or business. And then in today's subject, we'll be discussing how to run this youth-led business organization that you would have started. So joining me to digest this subject today is 2 amazing leaders and good friends of mine who are doing amazing work that they'll be able to tell us about, Juan Zacharo and Muka. Can you guys just say hi and tell us a bit about yourselves?
Thank you very much, Faith. Hi to everyone. My name is Mtetelenu Muka Kalama, and I run a youth-led organization called Agents of Change Foundation, where we use radio as a tool for advocacy. So we train young people in basic radio media skills as well as leadership. And from there, then they start running different shows that are focused on social change within their communities. And they talk about different issues that ranges from SR, HR, climate change and things like that. And we also go into communities for outreach activities where we do a lot of hands-on work with the community on these thematic areas. I'm really excited and honored to be here. Thank you.
Oh, Manta, I think your mic is still muted.
Oh dear. All right, thanks for that, Faith. My name is Juan Zacharo. I'm co-founder and principal manager for Spotless Africa, a cleaning services business that we've been running for almost 5 years now with my business partner. I'm also co-founder and director of the Piggy Bank campaign, which is a community-based organization that helps community schools access quality education. And so I'm very excited to be here and have a conversation about how to best run a youth-led organization. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much both. So just to kickstart the meeting, I'll also introduce myself. My name is Faith Kaoma, and I'm the Chief Operations Officer here at Corporals. And you have just joined our session on how to run a youth-led organization or business. This is part of our organization mentorship sessions at our youth hub. And in today's session, we'll be talking to Muka and Mwansa, who would tell us from their perspectives what their experiences have been, and also we'll pick up a couple of lessons which we can apply in our own, businesses, as well as ventures or initiatives that we would like to engage ourselves in. So to kickstart the meeting, I'll just quickly give a recap of what was discussed last week, Friday, in the session about how to start a youth-led business organization. Some of the major points that we discussed were around, registration. So after you have your business idea or you have your initiative or campaign, how do you then begin to formalize this organization to make it an institution? So we discussed, if you wanted to be a charity or a nonprofit organization, you might want to go the route of registration through community development, or maybe even PACRA as a company limited by guarantee. And if you're looking at registering a business, this is something that you might want to go the route of PACRA registration. So I'll ask my panelists, without assuming that everybody was on the call last week. I'll ask my panelists to just tell us in their own words, what is a youth-led business and organization, and just maybe highlighting some of the things that they've experienced in this. I'll start with you, Mwansa.
All right, thank you so much. It's quite interesting to that now a youth-led organization is actually a thing, and I think you will note that one of the most exciting things about Africa right now is that we've got a very young population with a median age of about 19. So that means that having the youngest population, we have to think about how to be creative and use this population that we have, which is the population boom, to the advantage of the continent and how to progress with it. And I think that's the thought line around youth-led organizations. So it basically talks about organizations or businesses that are actually being run by people that are below the age of 35, young people like ourselves, and possibly some of the challenges that they would find and that sort of thing. All of that encompasses youth-led organizations. So if you have somebody that is a co-founder that is below the age of 35, or the majority of the management of the team is below the age of 35, I think that qualifies an organization to be a youth-led organization, because you have young people that are in the forefront of running the business or the organization.
That's really interesting. It's great that you said we're in this peak youth era, and yes, it's important to acknowledge that. Muka, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are also just like in the line of what Mwansa has said. A youth-led organization, we would look at it from the point of view where an organization, in this case, is being led by young people who are obviously below the age of 35 and have also a youth-focused agenda. That's also very important to note. So there's the management that is still in the prime of their youth, and then there's also the young people that they're working with within the organization that are also young people. So basically, that is what a youth-led organization is.
Great, really interesting insights. So I want to now ask you both, as we zoom into answering the big question, which is, how do you run these same businesses? I want us to just narrow it down to, what are the next steps after you have figured out what your idea is, you've started, you've registered. What are the first things you need to do right after that happens? I'll ask you, Mutetelenu. Actually, I realized I didn't ask you whether you want me to address you as Muka or so my apologies,
Yeah.
Mutetelenu.
No. Either way is fine, so long as it's not the surname. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. Picking up from that, as a youth-led organization, you've done your registration. You've put in place the things that obviously you want to see as you go forward with your work. It's very important now. You need to start implementing some of the documents that you would have used in your registration process. In this case, we're talking about the Constitution. So things like that are not just documents that you take to either PACRA or you take to, community development for registration, there are now things that you now need to start implementing in your organization and also working with. And if you look at things like that, it's really like the Constitution, first of all, itself, it's a guide on how you're going to run your organization. So it's from that point that you're going to know, some of the positions that you're going to have in your organization. You're going to know like how you're going to run the board, which is also a very important factor. So as you are implementing your constitution, then we are moving on to the fact that now you need to put your board in place. I think many times some of the deficiencies that come with youth-led organizations or organizations that have been started by young people is that they forgo certain stages, of which these stages are like, creating a board that will overlook whatever that you're planning to do. And I think we have a wrong notion to think that, for us to start with the board, maybe we should have big funding that is already there, or we should, put certain things in place. Actually, the board will actually help you to secure, sometimes funding, put certain documentations in place that you might be lacking and things like that. And so from there now, after you implement your constitution, you put in now your board that will start working, then now you start looking for funding. Or sometimes with the help of the board, but sometimes also as an organization yourselves, now you start to, look out for funding. And in the way that you look for funding, this funding should be in line with what you have set as an organization. What is your focus area? What do you want to achieve? So that then will determine on how and where you look for this funding, because there's a lot of funding out there. So you can't just apply for certain funding that does not speak to your organization. So these are some of the steps that you can take after registration. Yeah.
Great, thanks for that, Mr. Deleno. Mwanta, what are your perspectives from a business side? And maybe you could also speak from Piggy Bank's campaign side as well, if they're similar to what Muka said.
Okay, I was just checking the mic, sorry. Just to make sure I'm not muted. Yeah. I think for me, whether you're running an NGO or a business, which I have experience as starting and running both of, I think there are three things that you have to do, and that is sell. You have to sell. Whether it is in form of a business where it's a product, your service and whatnot, begin selling it. Find that customer, that will actually believe in your product and will buy it, will be willing to spend money on it. All of those formalities that you had talked about last week are just formalities. At the end of the day, the rubber meets the road at the point where you begin selling. If it's an NGO, then it means you have to sell your vision, your dream, the kind of social impact that you'd like to have to either individuals that will help you run the organization or the actual people that you like to create the social impact with. I think that's the first thing that you have to do. Very, very, very important. Sell. I'm reminded of this. There's a very interesting video. I think those of us that have been in areas of community work for some time now would probably have come across it, where somebody is trying to describe social change and they put up a video of somebody that was dancing at the beach. Everybody's just there and they're all just enjoying the sun by the beach and whatnot. Then this one crazy guy just stands up and starts making some crazy moves at the beach, and the first instinct you get is, guy's a bit crazy, what's going on here? Until one other guy jumps up and starts to follow his moves and starts to dance with him, and also you have two people that are dancing. Then before you know it, another person jumps in, 3, 4, and within less than 3 minutes it's a huge crowd. But the point is that first person that started dancing had to sell that dance to the first person that came and joined him, and without that person that believed that he could also follow through and do the dance moves, that wouldn't have happened. So I think the first point you have to do before you even get to the bigger crowd is begin selling. Begin selling. If it's in business, find your customer, find somebody that is willing and able to pay for your product. If it is in a social impact area, find somebody that believes in your dream. Have a conversation with him. Somebody that you would work with. Somebody that you would, begin setting out all of these plans that you have with. Find that person. because at the end of the day, those are the people that will make or break your vision. They'll make or break your dream. So it is very important that you're very, very clear about it. In terms of businesses, you find that a lot of the times, what I think would sell might be worlds apart with what the customer might actually be wanting. So I could think that I could sell, or somebody would like, a pencil with glitter, So in my mind, it makes sense. It's like, oh, okay, I think people like fancy things. So if I add some glitter to a pencil, they'll be able to buy it. Then when I go out there and I begin to actually sell the product to the client, you find that it doesn't matter for the client whether it has glitter or not. So it's only until you begin selling that you get the feedback from the people. And same applies with social impact. Yeah.
Wow, that's really powerful, Juan Zacharo, about selling. And I guess sometimes it's very hard to connect selling, for business and selling for charity. But ultimately, it's pretty much the same thing. The fact that you're talking about your vision, as you've said, you're talking about your mission, you're talking about, the activities that you've started doing already in the communities. That's a form of selling. Okay, I'll draw back to your point, Mutetelenu, about selection of the board. Maybe just to zero in on that. Can you maybe tell us about what criteria is important to consider when you're putting together a team? This could be the board, this could be the people who you work with to get the work started.
Okay, so when it comes to the board, I think there are really different criteria that people use. But first of all, you need to understand the kind of work that you're getting into. So when you understand the kind of work that you're getting into, then it will be very easy for you to also identify the people that sort of are working in the same line of work or have got the same interests as you. So for instance, if it's a youth led organization, then definitely you should look out for young people who are out there and are doing big works, because in this case, maybe you're just starting out. So it would be good to look out for young people like yourselves who are already doing something that could add to your board. And then it's really diverse. You also look for people who've got interests, because if we have a board that is just for young people, sometimes we might not achieve what we're looking for. So it could be older people, but with an interest in maybe young people, or an interest in this case, like our organization, an interest in, media, an interest in advocacy. These are people in society who are already doing certain things. And sometimes even as you're starting, you just have people who are already supporting your vision, and understand the moment that someone, buys your vision, the moment that someone really understands what you're doing, it could be easy to, get them into the board so that you, so that they help you. But we also have to be very careful. Sometimes you might bring people in the board that may just come and, kill your shine or whatever you're starting to deal with. So we really have to tread carefully on that.
Very important point.
And yeah, and maybe just to add on, like the people, the other people apart from the board, I think it really dwells on the interest, people that have really bought your vision and really foresee the future, or really understand what you're planning on doing. I think these people come in handy to, work with.
Yeah, that's very important. Mwanta, any different thoughts on that? Selection of team?
Yeah. So I think, well, when you're doing selection of the board, is completely different from selecting people from like the people that will be actually working in the business. So I think talent acquisition is one of the most difficult things to do in business or in any organization. And I was just having a conversation last week with some of our board members, because we were recruiting somebody for an accountancy position, like an accountant position. And my goodness, it's so difficult to find the right people, the people that are good fits for your work, for the organization, and for the business that you have business. We are still struggling finding talent. It's a right now, but it's excruciatingly painful to find people that actually fit your culture as a business. I was talking about the example of trying to find the accountant, which is an experience that we had the last two weeks, because we've been recruiting for somebody that's supposed to start September. And I'll tell you, I've been telling people this. In this country, we have very high unemployment levels, but with very poor labor quality. Very, very poor. You and come for interviews and come completely unprepared. I was talking about the accountant position that we're recruiting for. And we had somebody that had studied banking and finance. And they come through, and I'm asking them about financial statements. And they're all at sea. All at sea. You know, I'm like, what were you doing all the 4 years you were studying? I'm an economist, but I know a lot more about financial statements and financial accounting than you do. So what exactly are you bringing to the table? You know, it's so difficult. And I think this is a way to ask young people as well. You have to put in the effort, guys. Right now, we're talking about the fact that the world is a global village. Your competition is not in Zambia. Your competition is global, it's international. Right now, I can sit on a computer and hire an accountant who's based in the UK, who's based in Dubai, who's based in Nigeria. Why? Because they can work remotely, and it's become a norm now. But we are bringing to the table bare minimum effort, you know, which is very, very bad and doesn't help at all. So I think that's one of the most difficult things that you get to do is that starting their organization. You have to be very careful with who you bring in, because if you don't hire the right people, they're going to break your organization. They're going to cut you to pieces. It's very, very important that you always have that. And for me, I always put it outright when I employ people to say, if you don't meet the mark, I have no problem with laying you off. Absolutely no problem. Because look, for me, the option is very simple. All right. It's very, very simple. If you are not doing your job, then you're dragging the entire business down, which means that these other 29 people that I have would be out of a job because you are not doing yours. So for me, it's very easy. I would rather cut you off and keep the job of the other 29. You know, so that's very, very important. You have to make sure that the person that you're bringing into the organization is able to meet the needs of the organization and fits the culture that you have.
Wow, really interesting insights there. I'm seeing people in the chat responding. That's very true. That's spot on. Keep them coming, guys. So just to bring it back to the table for those who are I'm streaming live from Facebook. This is Corpora's Youth Hub Organization Mentorship Session. That felt like a tongue twister. Mentorship session, and today we're discussing how to run a youth-led business or a youth-led organization. And I'm joined by panelists Juan Zacharo, who is the co-founder and principal or CEO of Spotless Africa, and Muntetelenu Kalama, who is the executive director of Agents of Change Foundation. So I'll take a pause here for now, just to get perspectives from the participants about what you both are discussing with us today, to ask a few questions. And we normally do this to get engagement going both on the Facebook Live as well as in the chat here. So I'll ask people to raise their hands if they have any responses to some of the questions I'm going to ask, which our panelists have already given responses to. So can someone tell us what are the 3 most important things to do once you have registered your business or organization? 3 most important things to do. Anyone? Oh, I can't see the hands. Okay, I will take 2 people, Sante and Mkisi. Sante, please unmute your mic.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so the first thing, you have to amendments, the documents in your organization, she talked of the constitution. And then number 2, you have to look for fundings according to your organization. But she said that there are so many fundings out there. So you have to look for fundings according to your vision, I guess. And then number 3, you have to sell your vision or your product. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sante. Someone from the team, Michelle, who's listed as corporals, will get in touch with you. You've won yourself a 50 kwacha airtime voucher. So, Mkisi, I think you have participated quite often. Can I give the opportunity to Liseli, and then maybe you can come into the next round? Is that fine? Great.
Okay.
Liseli.
Yes, it's fine.
All right.
Yes. Another thing that you're supposed to do is putting the board in place. Yes, because she has already said about implementing the constitution and the funding. So it's in putting the board in place and selling your vision out there.
Okay. Any other thing that was mentioned that you think is important? I think there's one more thing.
I think about the selection about putting the board in place. You need to find the young people below the age of 35 that are interested in, yes, that are willing to support the vision that you have.
Great. So it's selection of the board as well as the team members, the people who help run the vision. Great. Thank you, Liseli. Please look for Copper Rose, who is Michelle. She's going to get your details, and you've won yourself a 50 kwacha voucher of airtime. Okay, so back to our panelists. So very interesting insights before we took that break. I want to ask Mwansa, you talked about customers. Can you tell us, how did you land your first customer? How did you land your first customer? What was it like? And from the first customer you had up until now, how have you kept, some of those lessons to ensure that it's a bit more sustainable to keep on having more clients?
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think the first customer is always a heart-wrenching experience, because you're never too sure what they'll make of it. And but our first client was on the Copper Belt. Then we had just started off. So for those that don't know, Spotless Africa is a cleaning services business. We started it with my colleague at university, was at CBU, and we started off with just window cleaning services. So the basic idea was that a lot of the shops in the shopping malls that we have now are made out of glass, but very few people are keeping those glasses clean. So we thought, okay, maybe we could be doing this cleaning for them. And so the first client that we had was actually Keg at Mukubamo in Kitwe, and so a lot of it was just going to the manager and say, look, your windows are very dirty. We could do a fantastic job. We know how to clean these windows and whatnot. Can you give us a shot? And now, for a services business, you don't even know what exactly is the price. You're not even sure how to price it because nobody does this service. So you're not too sure whether to say 200 or 250 per clean or whatnot. So we went there and had a conversation with the manager, and he was quite happy with giving us a shot. And I'll kid you not, we were just using the same old system of doing window cleaning, because even us, we didn't know how to actually do it the professional way. But we just saw that there was actually a niche, and there was a way that this could actually be done, And so the manager there was okay with us getting the clean done for him, and we just used the maton cloth and did the clean and whatnot. And it wasn't as good as we would expect it to be, but we started building up from there. And I think that's the point. When you want to start something, you just have to start and get in there. And as you get more clients, you get used to what exactly the value proposition is, what exactly the client wants from you, And so eventually, we didn't even know why they were buying the service. We have, you know, that there's, I mentioned this before, there's usually there's a difference between what you think the client is buying and what you're actually selling, or what you think you're selling. I might think that I'm selling to you window cleaning service, but in actual sense, that's not what the client is buying. What the client might be buying is, you know, your level of professionalism, you know. And so it's about you understanding those small intricacies, the differences in that. But that comes with time, because when I get the client and I start having conversation with them about, oh, okay, so why exactly did you get this service from us? Then we found out that, oh, actually, because most of the people that have been cleaning are just casual workers. And so for them, because we look professional, we speak a certain way, we carry ourselves a certain way, we're always dressed professionally, it speaks to their brand as a business, you know. So when they associate themselves with our brand, it uplifts their brand as well. Whereas somebody that just walks in, a casual worker, to do their cleaning, they don't actually, you know, add the brand for the client. So those are small things that we need to be, you know, aware of. But I think that's the kind of experience that we have. And it's always the first customer. You always get a first customer for your client. It's not something that is different. Right now, we get to open different service lines for cleaning. We're now doing upholstery, we're doing pest control, we're doing whatnot. You get first clients for each of these, and the experience is always the same. You're not too sure what to say. You're not too sure why they're buying it. Conversation with them from there.
Yeah, that's wow. Thanks for that, Mansa. That's really interesting. And it brings me back to why a lot of people would ask, you know, so how did you start? Everybody always wants to know how you started. How did you start? So how did you first get the first client? How did you first? And I think the biggest thing I've taken away from what you've said is always start small. Like, don't think about having to wait until you have all the resources, or you figured out all your prices, or until you figured out where the funding will come from. For example, Corporals started with just volunteers from some of my classmates and our CEO's classmates. We just came together, a bunch of our friends, did an outreach activity. After the activity, by the way, we then went to my parents' place to eat shima. So we had nothing, basically. We were just working with whatever we had available to us. And these donations we did at the primary school where we're distributing menstrual products, we got that money from door-to-door activities on university campus. So it's important to start small, because then is when you'll be able to see, you know, I like what you said, Bonsa, about, you don't know what you're selling until the client knows what they're buying, because you think you know what you're selling, but that's not what the client is buying. Maybe the client is buying the fact that, oh, we had medical students on the team. Oh, we have, you know, students who are coming from university. Oh, you know, Mwansan team are professional. They speak good English, and, you know, they know what they're saying when they're talking about all these cleaning agents and things like that. So I'll turn to you, Muteteleno, to give us your perspective. What was your first funding like? And how have you, you know, how have you used that funding to kind of stay sustainable, whether or not it's continued, but basically the lessons you picked up from there?
Yeah, thank you very much, Faith. And really, the stories are similar, like, you know, what you've mentioned, Mwansa, and what you've mentioned, Faith, as well. At the time that we were starting as an organization, I think we really had completely nothing. First of all, we were, like, you know, operating without any funding, without any office space at all. And, you know, this was just a bunch of young people with their dreams in their laptops and phones, and, on paper, trying to find their way. And as time went on, we also relied a lot on, you know, family and friends who would, you know, put resources together. Then we would go ahead and, you know, train young people in these skills that we believed they should receive. And we did really sell ourselves, to steal the words of Mwansa. I think we devised a strategy where we needed to be heard and we needed to go out there. So it was a matter of, you know, appearing on TV shows, you know, appearing on radio shows, and doing all sorts of things so that people can actually notice you and notice, your brand per se, and say, oh, so these are the young people that are doing this and that. Maybe, we would align ourselves with them because of the things that they're doing. They look professional and they're doing all sorts of things. And that's where really we started from. And even at the time that we got our first funding, it was actually a very big funding and we couldn't believe it ourselves, because this is funding that could, after operating for a short while, this is funding that we never expected to get, and it was, over a long period of time. And also the issue here was that the funding came from people who actually trained us back in the day. So it was a situation where it was a group of us who had the same vision, same dreams, and wanted to start an organization. And so through different, trainings that we had attended and things like that, one of the organizations that had actually trained us with the bigger organization that was training us realized to say, oh, these young people are aligning themselves in such a way, and they're focused on creating change. I think we need to work with them. So these then funders, stopped working with the bigger organization and came and entrusted us with, a very huge responsibility of training young people in Zambia in the specific field that we were bound to do. So I think it really starts from there. And the fact that, we saw ourselves even before we could get any funding, even before we could set our foot on anything that we needed to do, people then believed in our dream as well and said, oh yeah, things are happening, when actually we were just trying to build ourselves. So it really does start from there. Yeah, starting small is very important. Understanding what you're doing is very important. It will just take you places.
Certainly, that's very true, Mutiteleno. Okay, so now I want to flip the coin to then get us to discuss the challenges. I think oftentimes entrepreneurs shy away. Okay, let me not say shy away, but speak less of the challenges. Challenges can include losing a very big client, or delivering late, or running late on a deadline, or missing an opportunity which was going to be life-changing or business changing. Those deep things. So I'll ask you both to just share some of the big challenges you've experienced in your journey. Mwansa, do you want to start? Oh, okay.
I don't know. Okay, yeah. Some of the challenges I think have been the biggest is really funding. When you look at youth-led organizations and funding within the country itself, I will talk about that, especially in our country, Zambia. It's very difficult to get to big organizations who really trust you with what you're doing and think that their money is worthy of your work, or things like that. It really takes a lot of fighting and persistence, and always going back to the people that have even most times maybe turned you down to say, oh, maybe they are not ready to handle this and this. And the reason has been is because of the other organizations that have come before us. These could have been young, youth-led organizations that could have come before us and were given a huge responsibility of handling cash, and they did not handle it so well. So then that sets a picture for any other future, young people who would come to ask for funding and things like that. And then I would also move on to talk about maybe personally myself as a young female. I think it's really a challenge. It's still a challenge, and which shouldn't even be a challenge. It's still a challenge leading as a young female, because our field is very male dominated, and in the male dominance, there's like the older generation that is really holding a lot of these spaces. And so for you to come out, and when they realize that you know what you're talking about and you can do certain things, it really puts you at a very difficult position, because there are all these things that come, with them disgranting, like discrediting what you're doing and not really believing in what you're saying and things like that. So that is still really a challenge. The other challenge would be keeping the teams together, especially in a social venture. We work with a lot of young people that are unpaid. These are volunteers. These are young people who've decided that they want to stay, with these kind of ventures. But sometimes it's difficult to manage that as well, because there will be certain young people that will come in with the idea of, oh yeah, they're saying we won't be paid, it's voluntary and things like that. But along the way, then they start questioning you and say, oh, but you told us this. I think now, we've been here for so many years, maybe we deserve this and that, or we could get this and that. But the thing with young people is that they need to realize that such kind of opportunities given to you, don't look at it as a short-term thing. It's about what you learn in the long run. My colleagues and I, before we started the organization, we had volunteered for so many years in different spaces. And that really helped us to gain a lot of skills. It helped us to really understand the work that we were getting into, and gave us other opportunities as well that if I was seated at home, I don't think I would have gotten. And those are some of the, the challenges that keep on coming. And also, the other challenges of trying to resolve conflicts amongst, our members, and trying to really align them with whatever is happening. And as time goes on, the sustenance now of the funding, how do you, ensure that the sustainability, the funding has come to an end? You still have young people that you need to work with. You still have, different partners that are looking up to you. You still have other people that are involved in the work. How then do you, put that balance together to ensure that there's sustainability, even if the money is not there? The young people will still take on the work and believe that, this is their own, and they could actually do so much with it. So those are some of the challenges that I have encountered, and we as an organization.
Wow, that's really powerful. That's so true. I was literally nodding my head at everything you were saying because I relate, especially with the ageism. And in our country, Zambia, there's a lot of ageism. And just as you've said, I've also been in earlier days in when we started Corporals, I've been in meetings where, big meetings, there are older people, most of them male, and we're discussing an event that we are co-organizing, and they tell me, oh, Faith, no problem, you can corporals give the speech, just tell your boss to come and give the speech. And then you're like, oh, but I'm the boss.
I'm the boss. Yeah.
So it's those things, and people looking at you saying, oh, but you can't be the leader of that organization, or people seeing it like, oh, you tell somebody else to come because you are too young. And this ageism thing actually affects intergenerational dialogue, because there's so much we can learn from older generations, and there's so much they can also learn from us. And sometimes not acknowledging the age difference and admitting that, okay, we are in different age groups, or, we have different experience, but we both are experts in our field. I think that is the game changer, and that's what either makes or breaks a partnership. But I mean, as we've said, you learn as you go, you get better with time, and soon, slowly but surely, people start to trust you, people start to believe in your leadership, because they start to say, oh wow, agents of change were at this year, and now they have reached at this level. They start to give you a certain level of respect because of your expertise. So yeah, thanks for that, Mteteleno. Mwanza, do you have any challenges to share with us?
Of course. I'm having a bit of a challenge with my internet, so let me know if I'm cutting, so that maybe I could cut off the video, and hopefully it could improve, just in case. Sure. Yeah. I like the story about ageism, because just I think about a month ago, one of our suppliers that we've been using for almost a year now. I've never met the gentleman, and so he decided to deliver the chemicals at the office, and it was like 6 p.m. and I was at the office, and so he came in, delivered and whatnot, then went back. I talked to one of the supervisors that's usually in charge of procuring chemicals and said, I came through, then they're like, who did you find? He's like, no, it was just a young man that I had found at the office and whatnot. I was like, what time was it? He's like, it was 6 p.m. No. The only person that's at the office after hours is is the boss himself. He's like, no, it wasn't your boss. It was, because they just can't fathom. They can't get that this is actually a young person that is running this entire machine. So it's always interesting. You get those, and worse for those of us that have been quote unquote blessed with small bodies. So it's even worse. Yeah. But speaking about challenges, I think the biggest obstacle that I had to get over as an entrepreneur was a lot more emotional challenge, because I'll tell you this, when we after I had graduated from university, I decided to say I was going to venture into full-time entrepreneurship. Okay. And so I graduated, second best in my class, and went home and told my mom, I don't want to work. And she was absolutely upset. She was livid. She couldn't believe it, And every single day, I think for the next 3 years of my entrepreneurial journey, she would send me job adverts to find a job because she couldn't just believe it. Why would you pack your degree? Why would you pack such good grades and put them aside and say you want to be cleaning windows? It just didn't make sense. At one point, I think like 2 weeks after I had completed, we had the Chilangamlilo, which is like a premarital ceremony for one of my cousins in Osaka. And so everybody was there, my uncles, my aunties, the whole entire extended family. And after the event was done at about 7 p.m., they called for a family meeting to discuss me and my decision to get into entrepreneurship full time. And I tell you, this meeting ran for 3 hours straight. And you have all of these older people telling you, you've completely lost your marbles. How could you do that? This doesn't make sense. You're throwing your life away. So it's that generational gap in aspirations, in hopes, in dreams that we have to get out of. And so it's very emotional at that particular time, especially when you're starting to say, I just want to do this full time, and this is what I want to do. This is my dream. This is my vision. A lot of the people that don't get to see you will try to pull you down, will try to convince you not to do it. And so it's painfully emotional. It's very challenging. It's a very, very, very lonely journey. And so that's the biggest challenge that I had to convince myself, to tell myself, you haven't gone bananas. You're not crazy. This is actually right for you because this is what you believe your purpose is. This is what you like. This is what you think would bring so much fulfillment in your life. So I think that's the biggest challenge that I had to overcome, to jump away from that notion, to jump away from that box that society and the culture sort of has placed for us. You can imagine for almost 16 years, I'd been going into school, and every day they were telling me to say I'm supposed to, get a job after I graduate and whatnot. I was being primed for that. So it was a big, big challenge to try and get away from that. So that I would place that as the number one challenge that we had.
It's themselves. They're home setup challenges, what your parents expect you to be, the people who've been funding your studies expect you to be. And sometimes it's even, I have family members who would say things like, oh, she's just working on her projects, like just because they can't say, oh, she works at this big bank or this big, how family also want to talk about us in our absence to their friends and their colleagues. So it becomes difficult to then say, oh, he's running spotless. But now I'm sure that they've kind of realized that, oh wow, the thing that they started all those years ago is actually doing great things. So I think it's also good for other younger people to see that, wow, Juan Zacharo are doing this amazing work. I think there's a lot of hope for me as well. And I shouldn't relent. I should keep on pushing and forging ahead with my goals. Okay, we're running out of time and still so many things to discuss, but I think I just now want to ask you both to share with us some tips, share with the rest of the team. I can see some questions coming in. Please keep them coming, guys. Questions coming into the chat, which we'll address, I think, in the last 5 minutes. But just at this point, I'll ask the panelists to just share with us some tips for success. What tips can you give a young entrepreneur who has started, who hasn't yet started, who is thinking about starting? What tips can you share with them? Any of you can start.
Okay, I can go. I think when you're trying to run a social entrepreneurship, I think it's sort of different from the conventional one that Juan is talking about. And so some of the things that you really have to do, maybe we can say the do's and don'ts, is first of all, as you're starting this, you really, because it's different, you know, like in Juan's case, if you employ people, you can easily fire them. But with social entrepreneurship, there are people that you start with that you are almost not firing. Like you can't really fire them. They'll have to stop or something like that. So first of all, you really have to be careful and don't become too familiar with everyone. In a sense that, yes, you can be friends, but you need to separate that friendship from work. That's the only way to go about it. And sometimes people will think, oh yeah, maybe, you know, it's a group of friends. And so if someone who's like the top in that, it's just like, you know, positions where you give yourselves positions, or the board gives you positions to say, okay, you fit well to do this and that. It doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, then your friends should not listen to you in a way, because there's, you know, there's the ego there of saying, oh yeah, you know, we are the same level, so what can she tell me about work? What can she? So that's because you become too familiar with each other. You're not separating work from friendship. I think it's really important to do that, so that you work accordingly. And secondly, I think you need to, this is something that we've talked about, you need to really sell yourself, sell your brand. People really need to know what you're talking about. And if you do that, it will place you at a very good position. And then you yourself as a leader, you need to improve yourself. You need to get into, especially in the social spectrum, you need to find ways of improving your skills. You need to attend a lot of, you know, apply for a lot of workshops, apply for a lot of things that would be beneficial to you. You never know, there's a lot online that you can apply for that can really help you in your career, in your skills, sharpening your skills and things like that. If you do that, you will really be improving yourself. You really see the world out there and see what you can actually bring to the table in your line of work. Sometimes you learn as you go. So those are some of the things that you can do. And then operating professionally as well is very important. You know, let's not operate like Tuntembas as, you know, youth-led organizations. It's very disheartening. You find someone saying, oh, I'm running a very small organization that I'm starting and things like that. No, say it as it is. I run a youth-led organization. The name is so and so. You don't go to meetings and say, oh, my name is what, and I run this small initiative and things like that. No. And the problem that we have in our society is that a lot of times these organizations are not called organizations because they are led by young people. They'll say, oh, they have an initiative, or they have a project going. It's not a project. It's a whole institution. It's a big, you know, system that is, you know, employing people as well. That is, you know, working with, you know, different partners and things like that. So we really need to align ourselves in that manner, so that we make sure that we are doing the right thing. And the other things that I've learned in life, I think learn to show up as well. Showing up is very, very important in your journey, even as you start small, whether you're going for meetings, whether you're going for, you know, interviews or things like that. Learn to show up, because when you show up, it really sends a message out there to say, oh yeah, I think what they're doing, what she could be doing could be right. So it's really important. I think those are some of the things that I can talk about.
Wow, really powerful, Mteteleno. Thanks for those amazing insights. Mwansa, what's your take?
Yeah, Yo, I wish we had enough time for this
I
section.
know.
I wish we had enough time for this section. But let me try and quickly summarize. I think for me, I'll just pick out three main ones. And the first one for me is focus. You have to focus. Pick one thing and run with it. One of the problems that we have, and I know a lot of us that want to get into entrepreneurship, whether it's social or business, we've got so many ideas. Every day we're waking up with ideas, and you want to run with each and every one of them. No, don't do it. Pick one thing and run with it. You say, okay, these are the ideas I have. This is the one thing I'm going to run with it. All right. I'm going to run with it. I'm going to learn how to do it, and I'm going to perfect the art and science of doing the work. Don't jump from one thing to the other, one thing to the other. All right. That is what you need to build your time on, whatever it is that you're working on. You need to build the time to become an expert. The problem is that you want to have so many titles on your CV. You want to have so many titles on your business card. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Build your expertise in that one area and say, this is the one that I'm running with, and I'm going to learn how to become an expert in this area. That's the first one. Focus. And I know there's a lot of things that we could talk about that, but in summary, that is the one. I think the second one would be consistency. All right. Over time, you get a lot of challenges in your business or in your organizations, but you have to stick with it. You have to stick with it. All right. You will learn that all the successful businesses, whichever ones that you look at, they at least died 3 times in their life for them before they were successful. 3 times. The business was completely shut, and the founder had to do CPR on the business. That's how it works. But if you easily give up and say, I'm not going to do this because it's become hard, you won't succeed. You have to keep it in there. You have to keep fighting for the business. You have to keep fighting for the life of the business, for the life of the organization. You have to keep at it and be consistent. And that fits in. In 2019, we were this close to closing the business. We actually had several meetings about whether should we close the business or start something else. That's what it's going to get you to, and you have to be prepared for it. Okay, that's the second one. The third one is discipline, and I know Teteleno had touched a bit on this. You have to be disciplined, guys. All right. A lot of people want to be show-offs, especially if you're running a business. You have money, you have a bit of money, and you want to spend it. You want them to see now you're buying this, you're buying that. Because now, yes, I'm the big don, I'm successful now. No. You have to be very, very disciplined, in the way that you handle yourselves, the finances for the business. Keep on reinvesting into the business. A lot of people laugh at me, because I think in 2018, when I decided to say, you know what, I'm going to be just wearing the same kind of outfit every single day. And even today, that's the same thing. Black golf shirt or black t-shirt with a pair of chinos and my sneakers, and I'm done. Same kind of thing. Why? Because I needed to breathe, to make my mind become disciplined, to say, you know what, we're going to be focused. We're not going to be, thinking about extra things that we need to do that don't concern the business. You have to be very disciplined in running your organization and in running your business as well.
Wow, thank you so much, Juan. That's really, really, really great insights, you both. So much still left unsaid, I feel, but maybe just to close it off before we open up for questions, are there any organizations that you have come across in our country that the participants can learn of, who you think are building up to success, and what kind of strategies do you think they're using which can be applied to others?
So for young people that are looking to start out, like, an organization or things like that, it would really be good for you to start looking at, the hubs that are around Lusaka for different ventures, like, the global platform that gives free space to young people to go and explore whatever you want to explore about. They give you free internet. and you can work within that. And also thinking about organizations like, Impact Hub. These organizations that are not youth-led, but they are youth-focused. So it's very important that, they put this forward. And also Copa Rose as well. I mean, the hub itself is really coming up so well. This is something that young people can look at and see how they can learn from you. Bongo Hive, those are also some of the, if you're into tech, you can go to Bongo Hive and learn some things. But some of the organizations that I know that I've worked with could be Young Farmers Initiative, which is YEFI. They also kind of have the same strategy where it's a youth-led organization being run by young people, and they have strategies in place that ensure that even as they are working in the farming industry, they're working with young farmers. So it sends out a message out there to say, okay, so their work is really focused on young people and it's being led by young people. So there are really different organizations that you can look out there. You can use social media for something good. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Mteteleno. Mwanza, any additions to the list?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of amazing young people that are doing amazing things in the country that a lot of people need to be on the lookout for. A few that are top of my mind would be maybe like Zippos. Zippos is trying to help retailers capture information in terms of the sales and their suppliers and all of that, which is fantastic stuff. They bring in gadgets that are helping a lot of these Tuntembas that Muka was talking about, trying to help them formalize their businesses. And it's fantastic work that they are doing. I know of My Perfect Stitch as well. Ruth has been handling that, and it's an amazing project as well. And she's into furniture and helping homes become better and that sort of thing. Perfect examples of young people that are doing fantastic things. I know of some of my friends that were in uni with together, that are running a construction company called CityWorks on the Copper Belt, another amazing business. So we have a lot of these young people that are doing several different things that we can all draw inspiration from and look at and say, what, actually, I'm not alone in this journey. Because one of the things I talked about is it's a lonely journey. But when you look at other young people that are doing amazing things, and like, what, we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, that's very true. Great. Thank you both for those amazing insights. Now I'll turn to the participants' questions. If you have any more questions, please feel free to type in the chat box or unmute your mic or raise your hand. But I think I can start with the questions that have been typed. If you have any questions, please raise your hand and ask, and I'll point to you to ask. But maybe just to start with the ones in the chat box, there's a question for you, Mteteleno. I heard you say you train youths. How can one be part of the training?
So how you can be part of the training is that you need to look out for our advertisements. So we usually post on our Facebook page, which is Agents of Change Foundation, when we're looking for young people to be part of different programs. So that's where most of the information is. You can just go to the Facebook page, follow it, and then you will see an advertisement.
Okay, I hope that's clear for you, Mutinta. And then Kisi asks you again, Muka, what are some of the institutions where one can get funding?
Yeah, so with funding, that's why I mentioned earlier on that it also depends with what you are focused on as an organization and what you're trying to build. So obviously, there's different funding set out in different institutions and organizations. If you're looking at, things to do with maybe SRHR, sexual reproductive health and rights, there are certain, organizations that you can go to, maybe the Ministry of Health or any other bigger organizations like the Southern African AIDS Trust in Zambia and things like that. Those are the ones that could have cause for such. But if you're looking at different thematic areas like climate change, obviously it's a different situation. So you need to focus where your work is focused. That's where you look for funding.
Okay, perfect. think those are the questions in the chat box. Any more questions to anyone on the call? Any questions for Mwansa, or any questions to anyone on the call today? Do we have any questions coming in from the Facebook Live? Oh, we have a question. Yes, Natasha.
Hi, Faith, and hi, everyone. It's been so interesting to be on this call. And my question is just, how do you plan for expansion and growth? So what are some of the things that you have to think about? Because there's usually a phase where people start, and then after 1 or 2 years, for example, Muka, after you got your first huge grant, a lot of people lose it at that point. They get so excited, they start spending money, they buy new cars, so what advice do you have for someone who's just had a good break, and what do they do after that? Even you, Mwansa, for example, you just get that first deal or first huge deal. What next? What should you do after that? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Natasha. I think it all dwells down to discipline. People really need to be disciplined with what they're doing. And also, if as an organization you're operating professionally and you have a board that you answer to, it would be very difficult to spend, that money in the way that you wish to spend it. I'll give an example of ourselves. I think at the time that we got that funding, we did not stop to look for funding. I think that's also another mistake that people make. So you stay with that funding and think, oh yeah, I think it will last us this long, so let's keep on doing this. But you sort of venture into other possibilities. Look at other ways in which you can create that revenue, or how you can apply for that for different funding, so that at the time that you run out of this other funding, you already have prospects, or you're already working and dwelling on other fundings that you found. So it's really discipline. People really need to have discipline with what they're doing and how they're going about it. And if we're talking about expansion, I think some of the things is really to have strategies in your organization, like a 5-year plan. How do you intend on working for that coming 5 years? Because you're not just looking at that 2 years or that 1 year that you are in there. How do you intend on, doing your work? How do you intend on progressing? What is your financial status? Do you plan on keeping people on board even as you come towards the end of whatever funding that you have? These are things that you really have to put in your mind, so that even when such a time comes, you really have to be ready, and you really have to be ready for such a time. I hope I've answered that.
Yes, thank you.
Mwansa, do you want to make any additions? Or
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. I think it was quite interesting because Natasha, I think it was a loaded question in itself, because it had two parts, and one is planning for growth, and the other one has to do with managing finances immediately you start to get your big break. Interestingly, even though we're a business as well, during the COVID period, we had gotten a grant. And it was a significant amount of money, and so it's a lump sum kind of money that anybody could, you could go crazy with, as Natasha had put it. But like Muka had mentioned, it's a lot more about the discipline. The same thing I talked about, and you just understanding firstly to say you have to be very clear about what you want to achieve. Okay, is this where I want to be at? If you've arrived, then maybe you can spend the money. But for some of us that know that, there's a bigger picture here. I need to use this money to grow so that we can build the business to where we want it to be. And it's that clarity in ambition, clarity in vision that will keep you going, and that will give you that level of discipline that you will require, and will stop you from misusing some of the funds that you'll get. It's absolutely important. for us, for me, the way I see it, our business is supposed to be a Pan-African business. I'm not looking at building a business that's only going to have a presence in Zambia. No, And so even whatever money I have, I'll be like, you know what, we need to grow it. Unless I'm in Tanzania, I'm in Botswana, I'm in Nigeria, I'm in Ghana, then I'll be like, oh, okay, I think, yes, we're getting there now. But as it stands right now, we're in building phase, and building phase requires us to be absolutely focused, in terms of what we need to do, and pumping monies back into the business, every little cent that we can get. And in terms of planning about growth and scaling, and it's just interesting because I'm trying to convince our board to say we need to get into a new country just now. And so it talks a lot about these three things, which is the 3 Ps: product, people, process. Product is very easy to sort out, because you know your stuff. There are products, you innovate and you know how to do it. But it's the people and the process that are very, very difficult to sort out. So for me, in terms of scale and how do we create the processes and systems within the business that will be able to manage a huge amount of people, at systems do we put in place itself? Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Mon.
And just to add on, Faith, concerning the same, I think one thing I forgot is also about, creating networks. It's very important. Collaborating with other organizations and creating networks. And so these networks could be friends that you meet in different meetings, in different, companies, organizations, and things like that. Sometimes I've met certain people who've come back maybe a year later and say organization and things like that. Why? Because there was that relationship that was created then, concerning the work. So networks is very important as well.
Yeah, that's very true. Thank you both. I think we have 2 last questions before we come to a close. I'll ask the participants who are raising their hands to please keep it under 30 seconds, just so that we can close. We're already over time. Wanenu, do you want to unmute your mic and ask?
Yes, thank you so much. My question goes to Mwanza. Thank you so much, both of the presenters. It's very insightful. He mentioned, for someone who's starting, I think he mentioned that we first focus on one idea before we become an expert in it. But then I wanted to inquire. I think you mentioned that at the beginning you were just dealing with cleaning of windows, but then now you have a wide range of services. I think you mentioned fumigation, upholstery, if I'm not mistaken. So at what point does one begin to start introducing other lines? That's my question.
Yeah. Could I answer that, Faith?
Oh, yes, please go ahead.
Okay, all right, okay. That's quite interesting. Thank you, Mwanenu. Good to see that you are on the call as well. I think it's always very difficult, hey, to figure out at what point you would have. I think you would essentially know that you've grown to a certain level of expertise. Like for us, the point was just to become the #1 cleaning services business in the country. And we did that. We became that and said, oh, okay, are we able to scale this service line much bigger than it is now? And when we did the permutations around putting in effort into growing the window cleaning service line and other cleaning services line and looking at the total available market, we saw that we would spend the same amount of energy would spend in scaling window cleaning further and putting it into other services would give us more returns into the other services than window cleaning. So it's not window cleaning service itself. We found that it was not a very scalable service line. And that's why now we had to sort of move away from that, not completely keep it there. It's still there and it's still running, but sort of venture into other service lines as well. So I think you need to get to a point where you know that you are possibly no one can do this job better than you. If you say nobody can do this better than you, if you ask Amazon the time that they had decided to move from just selling books to venture into the other businesses that they had, they knew that nobody could do book delivery better than they would. Then like, okay, now we can incorporate it because we've perfected the art of, we know everything ins and outs of this particular service line.
Thanks, Monsa. Mikisi, can you go ahead with your question, please?
Okay, my question is it possible to have a business like join to the two sides, the explanation? Is it impossible to have a youth-led organization, but in the same youth-led organization, there's a business like for some of us, like funding is kind of difficulty, but can you incorporate that to your business side so that in the due process, you will more like find a stream of income? I don't know with that, just a question.
That's a good
Yeah.
question. Leno, do you want to take it? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I think I can. Sometimes it becomes a little bit complicated if you want to take that route. Also starting with, I think, registration. If you look at it, if you're trying to register a social venture and you go to the community development ministry, I think some of the requirements are that if you're going to be a non-profit organization, it is non-profit. So you're not making profit out of that. But if you go to PACRA and say we want it to operate as a limited by guarantee, but as a non-profit, you're doing, and you say, oh, we are a non-profit organization and things like that, they won't actually, meaning that you have to get different kinds of funding, which could be like a grant or anything else that is away from the usual conventional funding. So you really need to decide at that point what you want. And actually some funders are very funny. If you have a registration that is limited by guarantee, you won't get funding at all. They'll say, no, for us, we require you to, be registered in this kind of way for us to give you this funding. So if you get that, then you also have to know how to go about it. And yeah.
Great. Thanks for those insights, Muteteleno. All right, we have come to a close of the session. I'll ask the panelists to just maybe share some last remarks and some take homes for the participants who are joining both on Facebook as well as here on the Zoom call.
Okay. Once I still, yeah. Thank you very much. First of all, it's been an honor, being here and talking about, these experiences, and that's why it's very important for the young people to really shift this time, because people actually pay for these kind of services at times. So if you have an organization like Copperos that is bringing you, free advice and things like that you can ask, I think it's very important to appreciate that. I think the takeaway for me would be that it's just a reminder to the young people, again, please ensure that you know what you're doing. Ensure that whatever that you have planned is really, know your stuff, know your work. Whatever you've planned, you should be able to know it, rather than, going to maybe looking at your documents all the time when you're asked a question and things like that. No, know your work. And ensure that whatever you're doing, let it be professional. Let it be professional. And I think I talk about this all the time. Let's not, create these Tuntemba kind of workshops that are usually on social media at times. And when you ask those people who are, because there's a lot of influx of, youth-led organizations that are coming up and things like that, and which is a very good thing. But, if we stick our work to this kind of work that is just on social media at times without really getting to the impact, we are really denying the people that deserve, either this kind of funding or this kind of support to be given, because there's this group of us that is just on social media and trying to say, oh yeah, we run an organization, we do this and that, but the actual work is not there. So we really have to be careful as young people. And the other thing is we need to learn from those that have started before us. I think there's a lot of running into starting our own ventures without really understanding the environment or the market that is there, and also understanding the work that is needed to be done. So there's a lot of running to go and start our own initiatives so that we might be seen, so that we might be all over social media. But it's very important that we learn from those that have started before us, and also understand, what we're getting ourselves into before we can actually, grow. It's okay to have mentors, even people like myself. I've got mentors that will always, mentor me. I haven't outgrown to the level that I think that I shouldn't have a mentor who's going to mentor me and, put me in the right path. So it's very important. Thank you very much.
Great, that's so powerful, Mteteleno. Yeah, we need to avoid briefcase organizations, just showing up on social media and not necessarily doing the work on the ground. That's very true. Thank you. Mwansa, any last words?
Yeah, thank you guys. I think it's been quite interesting just having conversations with all of you. I think for the few people that we have here, I know most of them are entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs, or wannabe entrepreneurs. I think the last word for me is just dream big, dream as big as you can. I think the world is there for the taking, and we have to be ambitious as young Zambians. If we're going to develop this country, Bali wants to develop it. We have to do it. We, the young people, have to do it. And at a certain point, we have to be so insane to think that we're going to achieve it. There's this concept I'm reading about called useful delusion. So it's a psychological concept where they are saying, you know what? Being delusional is actually very useful. We always think of it in a negative way, but they found that actually, even people that are in successful marriages, most of them think that their partners are much more prettier than they actually are. They're much more, intelligent. They think that they're more intelligent than their partners are actually are. But it's delusional, but in a sort of useful way, and the same applies for entrepreneurs. You find that when you're running a business, statistics say that I think about only 10% of businesses that start actually are alive 5 years later. So for you to start a business, you have to be absolutely delusional, but it's delusional in a sort of useful way. So let's go crazy. Don't play small, go big or go home, as they say. So yeah, let's dream big and keep going.
Thank you so much, Mwansa. That's really, really a great takeaway. So just as we close the session, I want to ask participants to fill out the evaluation form. It has been posted in the chat box just to let us know what you thought about the session. Any kind of takeaways from us as well at the Youth Hub, what we can learn from the sessions and how we can work together to improve the next couple of sessions. So we will be in touch with what the topic will be next week, in just at the beginning of next week. So please stay tuned on to our social media pages. But I just want to say a very big thank you from everyone, on behalf of everyone at Copperos, a very big thank you to Mteteleno and Mwansa for your powerful, powerful insights. It's been such a great conversation. I feel like we've come to 1 hour, almost 1 hour, 30 minutes now, and I still think there's more that I would have wanted us to talk about. But this is a series. We'll definitely be calling on you to share even more and maybe diving even deeper into some of the topics that came up or some of the themes that came up in our discussion today. So from us at Copperos and at the Youth Hub, we just want to say a big thank you. I'll ask people, the participants, to just react with a thunder clap. If you go down the bottom of reactions, you'll see where you can clap, just to give a round of applause to our panelists as a big thank you for the great information that they've shared with us today. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next week. Cheers, bye.
Bye.